The linoleum is cold, a shock against my skin. The clock on the wall ticks, each second a hammer blow in the silence. All I can see is the floral pattern on the wallpaper, a pattern I've hated for 20 years. It's funny what you notice when your certainty shatters. By the time the police got involved, I'd already thrown away my dreams. For 40 years, I did everything right. I worked hard. I saved diligently, clipping coupons and sewing buttons back on instead of buying new. I was a librarian. My life was built on the quiet certainty that if you follow the rules, the story has a happy ending. My story was supposed to be about golden years traveling with my husband, spoiling our grandkids, and finally reading all the books I'd only ever had time to catalog. It was supposed to smell like old paper and my mother's Earl Grey tea, served in the china teacups she left me. And then, in a matter of hours, it was all gone. This isn't just a story about a market crash. It's about the man on the phone who sounded like salvation. A man who took what little the market had left and burned it to the ground. I thought my future was bulletproof. But one click and one conversation destroyed 40 years of discipline. How does a woman who lived by the Dewey Decimal System lose over $1 million? This is how it happened. My name is Eleanor, and for 41 years, my world was quiet corridors and the comforting scent of binding glue. I applied the same philosophy to my finances. My husband, David, was a high school history teacher. We were never going to be rich, not television rich anyway. Our biggest splurge was an annual trip to a national park. Our 2 kids bundled in the back of a sensible sedan. I can still hear their laughter echoing between the canyons. We were building a different kind of wealth. A quiet, sturdy fortune measured not in yachts, but in security. From my very first paycheck in 1982, I enrolled in my employer's 401k. I remember it vividly. A flash of my younger self, full of hope, signing the form in the break room, then looking out the window, dreaming of the future I was building. That disciplined choice was my anchor. I still remember the first statement that showed a balance over $100,000. I laid it on the kitchen table, the smell of David's morning coffee hanging in the air, my hand trembling slightly as I looked at our wedding photo on the mantel. We had done it. We were responsible. I remember the day we paid off our mortgage, 7 years early. I was just standing in the living room, holding the deed in my hands, the paper warm and heavy. David came in and saw me, and this slow, brilliant smile spread across his face. He didn't say a word, just wrapped his arms around me. That night, we opened a bottle of sparkling grape juice we'd been saving and toasted the heavy, wonderful weight of that paper. It felt like the foundation of our life, built with love and careful planning. I was so proud of that planning, I even started leading free budgeting workshops at the community center. Every 2 weeks, a piece of my salary vanished, flowing right into that 401k. My portfolio was a simple, conservative mix, the set it and forget it approach. My sister Clara, who was always a bit more of a gambler, would talk about hot new stocks. "You're too safe, Elle," she'd say over Sunday pot roast. "You have to take risks to get rewards." I'd just smile. Why would I gamble? I had already won. By the time I was ready to retire, that number had swelled to just over $1.2 million. For a librarian and a history teacher, it was the world. It was a trip to see the lavender fields of Provence. I still have the brochure. It was a down payment on a small cabin near a lake for the grandkids. It was the freedom to never worry about a broken furnace again. I had followed the blueprint. My fortress was built, stone by steady stone. But what I didn't know then was that the most secure-looking fortress can have a tiny, unlocked gate, and a predator was already listening for the click of the latch. The first tremor started as a low hum of anxiety on the evening news. Market volatility. Recession fears. I'd lived through 2008. I remembered the gut-wrenching feeling, but this time felt different. I was at the finish line, and the track was crumbling under my feet. My friend Carol called, her voice tight with worry. "Have you seen your statement? Mine is a bloodbath." I tried to reassure her, my voice sounding more confident than I felt. "These things always bounce back, Carol." The moment I hung up, the hypocrisy stung. I started hiding my fear from David. I'd be folding laundry, the familiar scent of clean cotton in the air, but my mind was a storm. What if it's all gone before we can use it? 40 years. For nothing. I'd set the table for dinner, my hands moving with practiced calm, but inside I was screaming. When my own quarterly statement came, I left it on the counter for a full day. David saw it. "It's just paper, Elle. It goes up and it goes down." But when I finally opened it, the numbers were screaming. Nearly 20% of our life savings had vanished. $240,000. Gone. It felt like a physical blow. The Provence brochure on my desk suddenly looked like a cruel joke. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. I'd lie awake, my mind racing, doing exactly what you're not supposed to do. I was letting fear drive my thinking. Looking back, the warning sign was blinding, but fear makes you look in all the wrong places. The market crash wasn't the disaster. It was just the event that unlocked the door for the real predator to slip through. But the real collapse hadn't even begun. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning. "Urgent. Secure your 401k assets in a volatile market." The sender was Retirement Security Solutions. It wasn't in my spam folder. It looked professional, almost comforting. It spoke directly to the fear keeping me up at night, mentioning a special government-insured program for retirees. I hesitated. I almost mentioned it to David that night, a little knot of doubt forming in my stomach. He was grading papers, looking tired. I looked at the worry on his face, and I just couldn't bring myself to add another burden. I told myself I would handle it. I was the planner, after all. He made it all sound so logical. I should have asked one simple question, the one question that would have unraveled everything, but I didn't. With a trembling hand, I picked up the phone. A calm, deep voice answered. "Jonathan Miller." He listened patiently as I explained my situation. "Eleanor," he said, his tone dripping with empathy, "I understand completely. The big firms, they just tell you to ride it out, but they're not the ones who have to live on that money." He validated my fears and positioned himself as my ally against a broken system. He wove a masterpiece of credible lies about federally insured IRAs, impervious to market crashes. He sent me to a professional-looking website. I remember him making a joke about me being a librarian, something about the Dewey Decimal System. It didn't quite land, and a tiny part of my mind registered that he had no idea what it was. But I brushed it aside. The key was the urgency he created. Eleanor, the window for this program is closing. With the current market instability, the insurers are getting nervous. We only have a few slots left. He was weaponizing my fear, and it was working. He guided me through a three-way call with my actual 401k provider, speaking their language with such fluency that no one blinked. I remember the moment I gave the final verbal authorization for the transfer. A small voice in the back of my mind screamed, "Don't do this." A thought flickered and died. I should record this. Why would I? This was a lifeline, not a threat. The words came out anyway. They were mine, but it felt like someone else's mouth was speaking them. I thought I was choosing safety. I was actually detonating my own life. And what I didn't know was that the next call I made would be to a number that no longer existed. The next day, I logged into my old 401k account. The balance was 0. And for a strange split second, I wasn't in my kitchen. I was 25, on my honeymoon with David, standing on a cheap motel balcony overlooking the ocean. The air was salty and damp, and he wrapped his arms around me and whispered, "Look at that, Elle. It goes on forever, just like us." The memory shattered against the glare of the screen. 0. A wave of relief washed over me. The money was out. It was safe. For the first time in weeks, I slept through the night. It was the last peaceful night I would ever have. 5 business days passed. The new portal still showed a 0 balance. These things take time, I told myself. On the 8th day, I called Jonathan. Voicemail. On the 9th, I called again. Voicemail. On the 10th day, the prickle of anxiety became a spear of pure panic. I tried the website again. 404 not found. My heart stopped. I refreshed. 404 not found. I dialed his number. A computerized voice. "The number you have dialed is not in service." Number no. 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 I looked at my own reflection in the dark screen of the microwave. For a split second, I didn't recognize the terrified woman staring back at me. With a sense of absolute dread, I called my old, legitimate 401k provider. A friendly young man answered. I explained the situation, my voice cracking. "Okay, ma'am," he said cheerfully. "I see the transaction. A full rollover was completed 10 days ago to an account at RSS Holdings, LLC. RSS Holdings, LLC, not Retirement Security Solutions." I'm not even sure that was his real name. Maybe Jonathan Miller never existed at all. "Where did it go?" I whispered. "Ma'am, once the funds are successfully transferred, we no longer have visibility." I hung up. The room was spinning. I slid down the kitchen wall until I was sitting on the cold linoleum floor, staring at the cheerful floral pattern on our wallpaper. The entire sum of my life's work, the remaining $960,000, had been wired to a ghost. The silence in the house was absolute. But the silence in my head was just beginning to scream. For a week, I was a ghost in my own home. At night, I'd lie awake, trying to replay the three-way call in my head, grasping for some detail I'd missed. The sick feeling grew as I realized I had no record of it, no proof beyond my own memory. One night, I had a nightmare that I was back in my library, but all the shelves were swaying. When I reached out to steady them, the books turned to ash in my hands. When David came home and found me still sitting at the kitchen table, just staring, I finally told him. Telling him was the hardest thing I have ever had to do. The shame was a physical weight. I, the planner, the one who taught budgeting workshops, had undone 40 years of our shared sacrifice in one panicked decision. A few days later, I sat at that same table with a yellow legal pad, the way I always did to make a budget. I wrote down our new income, David's pension, my part-time library check. Then I started listing our expenses. The mortgage, the utilities, the car insurance. The numbers didn't work. They would never work again. I remembered folding crisp dollar bills into birthday cards for the grandkids, thinking, one day we'll take them to that lake house. I pressed pencil down so hard the lead snapped, and I just stared at the broken point. Standing at the kitchen counter, I saw the Provence travel brochure. I picked it up, ran my finger over the glossy image of lavender fields, and quietly dropped it into the recycling bin. It's a unique kind of grief, mourning a future that will never happen. Reporting it was another layer of humiliation. I rehearsed what I would say to the FBI agent, but the moment I started speaking, my voice shattered. The agent was kind but weary. I wasn't just a victim, I was a statistic. He said that in 2024, Americans over 60 lost nearly $4.9 billion to scammers. My sister Clara came over. She didn't say, "I told you so." She just sat with me in the ruins of my kitchen, took my hand, and said, "I didn't come to say anything, Elle. I just came to sit." A few weeks later, a woman at the library, Margaret, saw me shelving books and gently asked if I was all right. We talked, and she told me she'd received a nearly identical email a month before. "It almost got me," she whispered, "but my son works in tech. He took one look and said, 'Mom, that's a phantom site. It's a trap.' He showed me how to check." In her story, I didn't feel shame. I felt a flicker of solidarity. It could have been that simple. After weeks of drowning, a tiny spark of anger began to burn away the shame. Anger at Jonathan and at a system so complex it preys on people like me. My life as a librarian had taught me the power of information. I couldn't get our money back, but I could stop it from happening to someone else. The first lesson: never make big decisions out of panic. The second was about verification. I trusted a voice because he knew the right buzzwords. I never did the single most important thing. I never asked, "Are you a fiduciary?" And I never used FINRA's broker check, a free tool that takes 5 minutes and would have saved my life savings. That pressure, that sense of urgency, it's always a red flag. If I had just taken 5 minutes to Google his name, this story wouldn't exist. My life savings are gone. It's not just the money, it's the shame. It's so powerful that many victims never even report the crime because they blame themselves. Don't let shame keep you quiet. Silence protects them. Your story protects others. Please learn from me. Go to FINRA's broker check website. It's free. In the search bar, just type their full name or the company name. You'll see if they're licensed. You'll see their history and any complaints against them. If you see red flags or if you see nothing at all, run. It takes 5 minutes. You may not know someone like me, but one day you might be someone like me. Help your parents, your grandparents. Go to the website with them. The greatest gift you can give them is the knowledge to protect themselves. Share this story. In the comments below, if you or someone you know has seen a scam like this, share the warning signs. The more we talk about these tactics, the less power these predators have. I'm 66 now. I work part-time at the local public library. David tutors. It's not the retirement we planned. There are days when the bitterness is a hard pill to swallow. But my new purpose isn't found in leisure. It's found in telling this story. The other day, a young volunteer at the library asked me for financial advice. She said her parents were nearing retirement and were nervous. I sat down with her, pulled up broker check on the computer, and walked her through it. I explained what a fiduciary is, someone legally required to act in your best interest. In that moment, passing that hard-won wisdom forward, I felt a piece of myself click back into place. Build your financial fortress on a foundation of knowledge, not just hope. Trust, but always, always verify. I still have my mother's china teacups. They didn't break. Neither did I. My name is Eleanor. I am not a cautionary tale. I am your warning, and I will be heard. Watch this next for another gripping tale of retirement gone wrong, plus the lesson you can't afford to miss.